So this was 2 days ago. I was 28 at the time, working remotely as an IT consultant in Bozeman. The job wasn't special, but it paid okay, and working from anywhere in the world was a huge advantage for me. Unfortunately, I was going through a rough time. I had gotten divorced about 3 months earlier, and I wasn't handling it well. Nothing I tried helped, and believe me, I tried everything. Looking back, it feels foolish and naive, but at one point I was convinced I would stay miserable forever unless I did something drastic like going off the grid and spending a few weeks alone in the wilderness. So that's basically what I did. Camping has always been a big part of my life, so hiking into the wilderness alone wasn't as crazy as it sounds. I'm a lifelong scout. I never made Eagle in time, but still, I know the wilderness better than most people. My dad taught me everything. I didn't want to go anywhere near other people. That would defeat the purpose. I needed to be truly alone. So I did what any restless person does at 2 a.m. when they can't sleep. I went down an internet rabbit hole. I eventually found an old Montana backcountry camping forum with posts about unofficial sites in the Helena Lewis and Clark National Forest. Right then and there, I made the decision. The next morning, I planned everything. The only person I told was my brother, and even then, I didn't give him the exact spot, just a vague description of the general area. I had plenty of PTO saved up, so missing a week of work wasn't a big deal. If I remember right, that was a Tuesday, so by Thursday I had my truck fully packed. I had enough supplies for the entire week and extra, freeze-dried meals, water purification tablets, a first aid kit, and all the essentials, and of course, my Remington 700. I'm not a gun fanatic, but you don't go that deep into the Montana wilderness without something to protect you from wildlife. The drive was about 4 hours from Bozeman. The first 3.5 hours were easy. Highway to county road to Forest Service road. But the last part was a nightmare. My GPS kept rerouting because the road I needed wasn't in its system. After backtracking and double-checking the forum descriptions, I found an overgrown trail that matched what someone wrote. Twice I had to stop and move branches and debris blocking the path. My truck is a decent 4x4, but I started to worry about getting stuck. I drove until I couldn't go any farther, then shut off the engine. I knew I would have to reverse out later, but I was prepared, so I didn't stress. The moment I stepped out of the truck, I felt confident I was in the right place. But that deep in the wilderness, there isn't really a right place. Everything is equally remote. Either way, I was satisfied. There was a clearing near the trees where I parked, and it looked perfect for a campsite, except there was already a tent there. I noticed it immediately. An old olive green tent looked like it was from the 80s. My first thought was that someone else used those same forum posts, but the tent looked like it had been there for years. There was mold on the ceiling, visible from 20 feet away. I walked over out of curiosity. I probably shouldn't have, but I did. I called out a friendly hello and waited. No response. The zipper was partly open, so I unzipped it fully. The smell inside was horrible, like something had died in there. The stench was unbearable. But curiosity kept me there. I looked around and saw an empty sleeping bag, some soup cans, and a small notebook. I stayed inside long enough to grab the notebook and get back into fresh air. There was nothing else inside the tent, but something had caused that smell, which confused me. After stepping out, I flipped through the notebook and instantly understood what it was. Pages and pages of tally marks. Hundreds of them, in groups of 7. The last page had 42 groups, which was more than 8 months. I wasn't scared yet, just curious and excited that I found a little mystery. But after flipping through it a few times, there wasn't much else to see. I kept it. What was I going to do? Return it. Anyway, I set up my own camp on the opposite side of the clearing, far from the old tent, but close enough to keep an eye on it. I didn't like the idea of letting it out of my sight. As I settled in, I noticed there were no signs anyone had camped there before. I took a long hike and found no fire rings, no trash, no trails, no footprints. Nothing suggesting human presence. It was a clear night. I remember it because the stars looked incredible. The drive and setup tired me out, so I fell asleep fast. I woke up in the middle of the night. I didn't know the time, but I knew I didn't wake up for no reason. I'm a heavy sleeper, even in the wilderness. Something had woken me. I froze in the dark and listened. After about 30 seconds, I heard it. Whispers. 2 or 3 different voices, maybe 20 feet from my tent. They were having a conversation, but I couldn't understand the words. I was terrified. When you go that deep into the wilderness to be alone, the last thing you expect is other people, especially multiple people. I stayed frozen in my sleeping bag, pretending to be asleep. The voices stopped, but I still didn't move. Then I heard footsteps around my tent. Someone was circling it like an animal. Instinctively, I grabbed my rifle. That turned out to be the right move because 2 seconds later, someone started pulling on the tent zipper. It didn't move, thanks to the clips I installed. They pulled harder. I aimed my rifle at the flap and felt tempted to fire. I expected them to walk away, but they didn't. They started scratching the tent flap like trying to cut in, and that pushed me over the edge. I yelled that I had a gun and told them to back off. The scratching stopped instantly. After a few silent seconds, I heard footsteps, multiple sets, running away in different directions. It sounded like at least 3 people, which was even scarier. They didn't run in the same direction, which felt strange. I barely slept after that, but I felt safer with my rifle. At sunrise, I unzipped my tent and stepped out, making sure to show my rifle. I checked the old moldy tent, and it was gone. I walked to the spot where it had been. There was no depression in the ground, no stake holes, nothing. The grass wasn't even flattened, but I knew it was there. I stared at it for hours the day before. What I did see were footprints, bare human footprints forming a rough circle around my campsite, about 20 feet out. Tons of them in different sizes, confirming more than 2 people. Some prints were very deep, like someone had stood there for a long time. One set of prints led to a pine tree at the edge of the clearing. I walked over and saw fresh cuts in the bark, tally marks. 7 groups of 7 and the start of an 8th, just like the notebook. I stood there trying to understand. The notebook had been counting something for over 8 months, and now fresh tally marks were on a tree next to my campsite. I didn't want to think about what that meant. Then I noticed something else, the most disgusting thing I've ever seen. A dead squirrel hanging from a low branch tied with fishing line. I'm a hunter, I'm not squeamish, but the way it was positioned made me want to throw up. It was clearly a message or threat. I immediately ran back to my camp and packed as fast as I could. My hands were shaking, and I kept looking over my shoulder. After what felt like forever, I finally packed everything and ran to my truck. I threw my gear inside, climbed in, and started backing out. I half expected my tires to be slashed, but thankfully my truck was untouched. The path was narrow, and reversing out was worse than entering. It was torture, but I made it out. I don't think I was followed. When I got home, I decided not to call anyone. There was no point. What would I even report? Nobody would go that far into the woods to check. The thing that scares me most is that squirrel. No one does that unless they want to send a message. I honestly don't know what would have happened if I stayed another night or if I hadn't been armed. Thanks for watching, and please subscribe my channel Fear Hub Chronicles